Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Guillermo Amaral joins me. We're going to be talking about OpenAV and mod devices, which are things that help musicians do really cool things with open source software. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
Hi, everybody. It's time for our annual audience survey. We'd really like to hear from you. It helps us understand our audience better, know what you like and don't like, how you listen to the show. It also helps us tell advertisers what kind of people listen. But I promise you, your feedback is always kept personally anonymous. All you have to do is visit twit.tv/survey and let us know what you think. It'll just take a few minutes, and it'll help us make Twit even better. We really appreciate your support and any help you can give us. twit.tv/survey.
This is Floss Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Guillermo Amaral. Episode 376, recorded February 23rd, 2016. OpenAV and mod devices. This episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by DigitalOcean. Simple and fast cloud hosting built for developers. Deploy an SSD cloud server in 55 seconds. Try it today for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com. And once you sign up, be sure to enter the promo code FLOSS in the billing section to get your $10 credit. It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at Stonehenge.com, bringing you each week the movers, the shakers, the big projects, the little projects, projects you may be using every day and totally unaware of it, projects you might want to download right after this show and start playing with it. I'm sure today will be no exception to that second item there. Joining me every week is a wonderful and talented and lovely co-host. This week would be Guillermo Amaral. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Randall? I am lovely.
Yeah, I don't know. I accidentally said that once. It just became sort of the standard phrase, and I know, Aaron keeps bringing it up that way, but that's cool. People can do what they want on this show. You know, they let anybody host these things, so it's all pretty cool. So if you're looking at the video, you see behind me the wonderful skyline. Well, not really. The sky over Santa Monica. I'm once again at ZipRecruiter in downtown Santa Monica, enjoying myself here and getting a lot of work done. And Guillermo, it looks like you're in your normal second floor underground bunker.
Underground bunker, yeah. Yeah, it's damp and cold down here. Wait, set up here, down here.
Yep. Well, today's show is pretty fascinating. I know there's a lot of people when I announced that we were bringing these guys on, they were like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this sort of thing to happen. So what we've got today is we've got two projects actually being represented, although they're correlated and overlapping, OpenAV Productions and Mod Devices. And we're going to be bringing on, in a few minutes, Harry Van Haren and Gianfranco Seccolini, who are going to be representing their respective projects, and they talk about how they're related and all this stuff. But here's what I've been able to take away from this so far. So the OpenAV Productions is a lot of really cool virtual software that emulates what used to be hard audio boxes. And this has been attempted a few times. There's been a lot of commercial stuff in this area, but it looks like they've got a pretty comprehensive stuff that's already available. And of course, it's all open source, so they wouldn't be on this show. So we'll be talking some about that. And hopefully that's a pretty good description. We'll see in a minute if I got it right. And then we're also going to be talking about mod devices, which is physical boxes. You know, like you've seen most guitarists play. They have like a stomp box or something that they have little buttons that they kick to, add some wow or add some harmonics and things like that. Well, what these guys seem to have done is basically you use software to configure all sorts of different versions of this thing, and then you download it into a physical device. You take that physical device with you to the gig, and you perform with it. It looks really, really cool because it's this great crossover. And by the way, the graphics are amazing. My programs never look like this, so I'm going to have to ask how they got all those cool graphics on there. Guillermo, can you fill in any more of what I said?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I know Aaron commented on this about a few shows ago, and I looked up the website, and yeah, it looks very both the projects look intense, so they look very well polished, and I haven't heard how the effects sound and all, but I'm hoping it's gonna sound really great.
Great, cool, cool. And we'll probably have them maybe throw us a URL or two that we could actually play some of this stuff live on this show. So kind of, this is one thing, especially with this, it's really going to be audio visual. It would be bad for us to just spend 45 minutes talking about it. So hopefully we can bring in a couple little demos as well. So we'll bring them on in just a second, but I have a very important message before we continue. Because whether you're developing an app, a website, or working on a server-based project, you need flexible, reliable, and affordable hosting. DigitalOcean offers Droplets, which are virtual private servers that can be customized and deployed easily to host websites, web apps, production applications, personal projects, virtual desktops, and almost anything else you can think of with full root access. This helps you get your project off the ground quickly and makes it easy to scale when you find success. DigitalOcean is used by over 600,000 developers, including me. I found out about DigitalOcean last year at Scale, and they gave a code that I could actually get a discount. We have a code like that, so stay with us for a second. Deploy and configure your Droplets via a streamlined control panel or simple API. You can choose your OS: Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, CoreOS, and FreeBSD. My box in the sky is FreeBSD. Really enjoy that they offer that. That's what got me started with them. Select from one of many pre-configured one-clicks like Drupal, Docker, or Node.js to get up and running quickly, or build the exact infrastructure you need with root access to servers running 100% SSDs in the state-of-the-art data centers around the world. Highly scalable to meet the demands of a rapidly growing application or business. You can also use advanced features like floating IPs for high availability, private networking, and automated deployments via API. They have an extremely active community with a large and detailed set of tutorials on all the ways you can use your Droplet. Want to configure a LAMP server, set up a virtual desktop or VPN? They've got you covered. And it's so easy to get started. You can deploy an SSD cloud server in as little as 55 seconds. I've actually witnessed that 2 or 3 times. DigitalOcean has incredibly affordable and straightforward pricing. Servers start at only $5 per month. There's also hourly pricing available starting at less than a penny per hour. But we're going to make it so you can get started today and deploy an SSD cloud server for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com and create an account. Once you confirm your email and account information, go to the billing section and enter the promo code FLOSS for a free $10 credit. That's plenty to get started and explore what DigitalOcean can do. That's DigitalOcean.com. And once you sign up, enter the code FLOSS in the billing section to get your $10 credit for free. We thank DigitalOcean for their support of Floss Weekly. And let's go ahead and bring on our guests. We'll start with, now I lost it on the screen. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. There we go. Harry Von Harn, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Harry from OpenAV Productions. I'm currently in Limerick in the West Ireland. It's a middly dry day here. There was a bit of sunshine earlier, but yeah, excited to talk to you guys about open source software and what I've been doing making live performance software for the last couple of years.
Awesome. Okay, and let's first bring on, now see, I can't make my eyes with Gianfranco Seccolini. Hopefully that's close, right?
Hello, everyone. This is Gianfranco. I'm normally in Berlin, but now I'm in Brazil, in São Paulo, actually. Very hot day here. And I would like to thank Harry for the invite and also for Randall. And I hope we have a great program.
Oh, we'll try. We do pretty good at this, so of course we do. So let's start with Harry first. Harry, tell us about OpenAV Productions and how it got started and what problem it's trying to solve.
So I guess OpenAV kind of started initially with my own, playing music and trying to do some live looping and trying to, change how you can perform live on stage, not just here's me and a guitar, but here's me and a guitar and a whole band of technology with me that you can really push the limits of live performance. You can turn up on your own and just blow people away with this really amazing performance, and it's all just controlled on your own. So essentially all the OpenAV software that I'm building is geared towards live performance, on-stage use, and really trying to push the limits of live performance. So what problem do I solve? Is there a problem there is a better question, I think. I don't see it as a problem. It's all kind of a gray scale kind of thing, right? But really what I'm trying to do is, give artists the tools and the software they need to try and, really make a really impressive show with open source software and based on open source tools.
Yeah, well, I remember back when the introduction in the early days of when the programmable synthesizers started showing up on stages, and I was curious, how well can people migrate from, say, a classic thing that just has presets to something where they've actually got a lot more capability. And things have really progressed. I mean, it sounds like you're all the way to the other end where you've got, well, tell us about what the interface is, and do I need a laptop on stage to use this?
So the way it works with OpenAV software is basically the way I run it here when I'm testing the software itself is I have a normal desktop computer. It runs whatever distro of Linux you're interested in yourself. And then what you do with it is run a piece of software called Jack. Jack's a fantastic piece of software that lets basically audio be routed within your computer. And then I run OpenAV software after that. So you can plug a guitar into the computer, and then the software that works on that or loops the audio, or there's a lot of things we can do with it. So the workflow for me then, in terms of trying to actually make music with this stuff and to make it useful, is turn on the computer, set up the gear. So there's always a mixer and a piece of hardware. Plug in the guitar, plug in your speakers or your headset, whichever you're using, and then start playing music. So is there hardware required? Most certainly, yes. There's a computer, there's a screen, there's a mouse, there's a keyboard, there's a whole range of other things that all need to be set up. Now, it's not that much effort, but at the same time, it's not something that you particularly want to take onto stage, because there's a lot of chance that if you're rocking out on the stage and you kick a cable somewhere, something's going to die. Your show is going to be over a little sooner than you'd intended, purely because, hey, look, you're here with a computer on stage. And these things happen. I mean, we've all seen the YouTube clips of the most famous artists on stage, and a blue screen pops up and says, "This is the end of the show." So that's kind of something that you obviously don't want to have. In terms of the software itself and the interfaces, and what I really try and focus on is usability in a live context. And what I mean with that is workflow. So for people not familiar with the term of workflow, it's really how you interact with a piece of technology. So it's not so much what the technology does, but how you use it. So a mobile phone is a good example, in that how you use it is very different to what it does. You take it out of your pocket and you have Facebook, your Gmail, your everything is there. But the technology itself, it's a screen and a keyboard. So your workflow really focuses on, how do you use this and what do you do with it? What am I trying to get to here? Essentially, with music software, it's very easy to get bogged down and to get held up by all the technical details, by the fancy features and gizmos that the latest and greatest of a piece of software has. But for me, the very interesting part is to think about what can I give the artist, like what two controls that just do what they want them to do, that allow them to express themselves in a live context. So what I try to do when I design the OpenAV interfaces is remove all the technical details. Like when you're on stage, you don't want technical details. What you want is one big controller that lets, the awesome knob, the one that goes to 11, this kind of like typical rock guitar kind of jokes. But that's what I try and expose in the interface, so that it becomes very easy to work with this software in a live on stage kind of context.
Okay, and so so what I'm seeing on the screen, I think we can get a shot or two of it from your website. So what I'm seeing on the screen are familiar building blocks then, or that's a little small.
So
yeah.
For example, like that's FabLight's a drum sampler. There's some other effects down below there. There's a lot of different kind of tools. The smaller effects at the bottom, they do like kind of one effect each. And the drum sampler is kind of a simple drum sampler that just does what you want it to do. So if you wire up a piece of hardware to that, you can see exactly how to use it. Same with the Sorcerer synthesizer, admittedly a bit more complicated, but hey, it has some fancy features. So I thought the complexity was kind of justified. What can you do with this is we take that interface, and then using various pieces of hardware like a MIDI controller or so, we can do live performances with it. And the way that the parameters inside that interface are routed to each other gives the musicians like also controls that are very useful to work with live on stage.
Okay, and I just a couple questions about sort of your background. Were you a musician first and then learned software, or the other way around?
Yeah, no, I'd say I'll go with that. So I got a guitar when I was about 12, and I got a piano a couple of years later, and kind of played those for a while, and then got interested in technology. And so the last kind of 6-7 years, I've been programming pretty hardcore programming, and yeah, got into Linux and real-time audio software, and it kind of spiraled from there, I guess.
Wow, cool. Hey, I don't want to leave Ian hanging, so let's go ahead and talk to you a bit. Can you give us the overview of Mod Devices and how it got started and what problem it solves?
Oh, for sure. Well, the idea, it's been worked on for like 6 years, but it's an old wish that I had as a guitar player. As you mentioned on the introduction, we guitar players, we use these stone boxes, and it's very common to have dozens of that. Like, it's never enough. And I always wanted a single solution, something like, I've always been into computer, and I wanted something that I could reprogram the way I wanted, like an open platform. And that's how the mod was born. Initially, actually, it was not to be a Linux device. The Linux came later. I've been into Linux since '98, but the first idea of the mod wasn't even with Linux. And then at one point, we realized that if we were going to break this binding between the software and the hardware, I mean, if we would make a machine that you would leave people work, put whatever software they wanted, then it should be like some open source solution in which you already had some kind of community. Otherwise, the thing that doesn't kick off. And then how Linux came along, and it's so we have this box that it's Linux running inside a real-time kernel. And we have a very nice interface, very intuitive for you to put plugins and connect the plugins inside, just like a virtual pedal board. And the platform is all open. It means that anyone can create their own plugins and put inside the box. Actually, we have this very nice structure in which we have the devices, the computer of the user, and the cloud, just like an app store. And so you use the computer to configure your device, and you can get even more plugins all the time, just like on the Linux distributions. We have a similar structure for the plugins, and you can download new plugins and put inside the box and just play on stage with it. It's meant for the stage. I have one here. Yep, this is the Duo. I have a real one here. Later, I can even show it working. I have one turned on here. And well, we did a Kickstarter campaign for the Duo. This is actually our third model, and this is our first mass-produced one. And we did a Kickstarter in the end of 2014, and after 1 year and some months, we are now delivering, which is awesome. We just did the first shipping on last Friday, so very exciting times for us. We really think we will hit some kind of audience with that.
Could you give us a little bit more information on the exact specs of the board you're using there?
With the board itself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, in this case, this is our third product. We started using an Intel architecture, but because of lots of reasons, we came for the RAM, the ARM architecture. It's the one they use in the mobile phones and the tablets. So it's a 1 gigahertz dual core system. It's a ARM A7, and it's everything embedded in a single board. It's called a core board. And we have 4 gigs of NAND and 1 gig of RAM, and the entire system runs there. The thing is that we have our very own custom-built Linux distro for it. It's we do everything using Buildroot, and we build everything from scratch. So the system that is running here, it's really optimized for this processor, for this machine.
Nice. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. I wasn't sure if you guys use something like Dacto or Buildroot. In my case, I prefer Buildroot too, so that's good. So you guys aren't using anything like an FPGA or anything to do the actual audio processing? Then or a DSP, you're just piping that through Linux?
Exactly. This is one of the very important points, because if we have a generic processor inside here, so it means that all the existing code that it's around can be used almost directly here. Normally, it's just a matter of configuring your GCC to make the cross-compiling, but it's a generic processor, so we are using existing code. There's not a necessity to create new code to run here, like you have with the DSPs or even any FPGA that you want to use. And this, for me, it's one of the big differences, because the size of the existing communities is really big already. So like Harry has the OpenAV, which is an amazing collection of existing plugins that were done for the software, but we somehow managed to get these plugins and put it inside a box and take it to the stage. And this is only possible with the generic processor. That's why our processor is like that.
Yeah, and I guess you can actually keep everything open source, right? Because if you were using something like an FPGA or a DSP, you would need to use some special tooling to build the actual binary blobs that go into that. Are you also making this project open source hardware?
Only parts of it. The main unit, it's not open source hardware, but we have one connection for external peripherals. We call this the control chain, and the control chain is entirely open, including the real devices. So we have an expression pedal. If you take a look at the website on the products, you can see it there. There's an Arduino integration so that you can build your own. Yeah, this is the expression pedal. So the files are all available. The Arduino Shield is very cool. It's an integration. So we sort out the communication between the Arduino and the mod, and then the developers create their own controllers in a very, very easy way. And they don't have to sort out communication issues. They just have to think about whatever sensor they want and map those to real plug-in controls.
So how are you guys handling the loss of power issue? If you guys are using like an actual Linux system, I know that might interest some of our viewers here. That do you keep the main OS in a read-only format, and do you just save the configs that got programmed into the device somewhere,
actually we have some partitions on the system. We have, of course, the system partition, which is read-only. But then we have another partition for the data, and there's multiple partitions on the system in order to make it work. But yeah, the power loss, it's mainly done by the file system, the security. It's a read-only, and that's it.
Okay, good. Yeah, and what about hacker friendliness? If somebody would open the device up and just muck around with the electronics in there, did you guys think about that in the in the past tense, that you add something in there for somebody who's interested in looking into that?
I am the mechanical engineer, so I make the physical design. And I did it in a way that it's very easy to open and really disassemble it entirely. The core board, it's in a SODIMM socket, so you can take it out. We want to have hardware upgrades on the future for the CPU. We isolated all the obsolescence in this board, so you can like change the engine of your mod, and changing the CPU and memory. We want to have these upgrades on the future, and provided that the person wants to change the audio interface, I don't know, change some resistors, it's possible, but it's not that simple because most of the things are SMD, so the devices are surface mount. It's not that simple to hack, but it's possible. Yeah, for sure. We don't make it impossible.
Well, that's good. That's good. To say, a lot of people just put in a lot of security features in there that make even modifying the boot partition or whatever like completely impossible, or at least very hard. You mentioned you're a mechanical engineer, rather. Did you guys decide to make the casing open source? Maybe somebody could print their own, I guess.
For this one, not yet. We are a very small company. We are just getting into the market. And so in order to release everything open source, there's still lots of concerns regarding, after all, this is a business. This is in order to make a viable company. And we're still going after investors and everything. So having even the hardware open source scares us a bit regarding if this will make will make the investors don't want to invest in us, something like that. And we need investors in the very near future in order to scale up and become a real business.
Of course, it's always a delicate balance between what you, in business-wise, I guess, of what you can actually release and still be viable as a business, right? So what kind of let's say, visual interface do you have when somebody's running out of processing power in the mod device here? Let's say if I add a lot of special effects, will it warn me when it starts losing performance, or
yes.
Let's say if it starts running out of battery, maybe?
No, it doesn't use batteries. It goes on a power supply on the power socket. We have a fixed latency. We use Jack, just like the plugins that the software that Harry does. And on Jack, you have this constant buffering. So we have a constant latency. In our case, it's 128 samples. And depending on the plugin, you can spend more or less CPU. And so what Jack does, it gives you the amount of time it has available so that you can put more plugins. But the actual percentage that each plugin consumes depends a lot on the plugin itself. We have a meter on our assembler in the place where when you drag and connect the plugins. We have a meter there, so you know how strong are you going. And it varies a lot from plugin to plugin.
Oh, good. So it does tell you while you're building the actual setup you want to play around with. Then it gives you a little idea. Okay, that's good. And
if it's possible later, I can share my screen and show you it here. I have it connected here, so instead of having my video, I can put share the screen.
If you could, that would be great. I know we wanted to show how that works, but since we really don't know how to play around with it effectively, it would probably be the better one to do that.
Yep.
There you go.
Very tiny though.
So
there we go.
This is the interface, and I have let me start a new one. So we have the inputs here, and 2 audio inputs. And down here is the plugin bar. So we have lots of different plugins here. I'm looking at the distortion ones, but if I look at all, and so these are all plugins that are already installed inside the device. And if you want to put a plugin, you just drag it. And just like we do with the guitars, you just get the cable here, and sound is coming out. Simple as that. Down here, you have the CPU here, see? 11%. And if I take the plugin out, it goes to 5.5%. Some plugins will get it more. Let's say the Guitarix gets like 20%. It depends a lot. And well, this is our interface. As I told you, it's very easy to use. It's very simple. You can have MIDI connections as well. So here on the generators, we have lots of synthesizers, like a MDA piano. And then same thing, just drag and drop and connect. You can connect same 2 different sounds for one single output, or send them to different outputs of the device. It's very flexible. It's total creative freedom, actually.
Can you actually demo that? What sound change did that just make by putting that in there?
Okay, let me see if you guys can listen to me.
We should be able to hear it in your mic, although the mic is tiny.
Yeah. Oh, but I think it works. Well, let's...
Yeah, we're hearing that.
Yeah, but there's no... Oh, here. Just a second. Yep. You guys can listen to that?
Yeah, I heard that. We heard that fine.
And I can put the gain here. Let's put a bit of drive.
Oh, nice.
Got it?
That sounds
great. Yeah.
Okay, and that's it. And we have dozens of plugins. We have delays, distortions, and everything. And one of the coolest things, it's provided that like the computer that I'm using now, it's on the internet. So if I go down here, this is the plugin store. And so now we have, these are plugins that are all online, okay? And to install a plugin, you just click on the plugin and install. I have some descriptions here, and it's installing now, and done. So now it's local. Wow. And if I go here on this on the simulator, the cabinet 3, this is the one that I installed. It's simple as that.
Wow.
Cool. Are all the plugins free, or can you actually buy some branded ones or something?
For the moment, we are releasing only open source plugins. On the future, I don't want to deal with plugins. My product, it's the box. And for the moment, like my product, I consider to be the platform and the box and everything, but not the plugins. I want the third-party people to do plugins. I don't want to be a plugin developer. I want to do the platform. And because there are thousands of people around the world, millions of people that have intellectual capital to put into the plugins, and it's much easier than to create a hardware. To do a plugin, you sit down and type it. You don't need a factory to do that. So we provide the factory and all these things, and the platform. So we want the people to publish as many plugins as possible. And we started getting all the plugins that we found that were cool. We did a selection. So if you go in the store, you have these the stable ones that are the ones that we have a nice interface, set up everything, comments, some kinds of instructions. But these are like 150 that we did that. But we have like 450 available with all the plugins that we found. And so not of them are great, of course, but from the stable part, most of them are really, really cool.
So I might jump in there just where Guillen's mentioning that, there's a community of plugin developers, and that's kind of a community that I'm involved in. And there's a lot of people. There's a community, I call them the Linux Audio Developers community, that's primarily after the mailing list where most of us hang out. But there's also a Linux Audio Conference. It's a yearly event where people like myself and Guillen actually met, and a lot of people get together and talk about Linux audio and the opportunities that, like writing plugins or writing applications on Linux for audio processing, all kind of like central. It's our place where we all meet. And the really nice thing there is that there's a huge community of people working on the LV2 plugin specs. So that's the plugins that Guillen was actually just running on the mod itself. That's the plugins that I'm writing as OpenAV. And, the fact that I can be here in Ireland, I upload a plugin, write an open source plugin, publish it up to the cloud, Guillen can grab it, compile it, put it on the mod, and then everyone across the world could actually take one of those plugins and just bring it to the stage. Pretty much, well, you actually saw one being installed live on stage, or like in a live situation. That's the part that really gets me, that like the power, like from a developer's point of view, I know what I'm running on. I know what the device is. It's a Linux computer. I write C code that does real-time DSP and in the LV2 plugin format, and then the hardware that is the mod can take that and just bring it onto the stage for me. So to draw from the analogy I was talking about earlier, if I want to go on stage now, I take a desktop computer and I need an external mixer and this and that and the other. What that's all replaced by is a single stomp box that has some controllers on it, so I can actually control the plugins live on stage and by literally stepping on this box. And I have a mod here myself. It's one of the prototype ones that I got from Guillen a while back, and it's a fantastic build unit. Like if you feel this, it's heavy. It's not easy to, it's solid. And if you take that on a stage, you feel like you can kick it around the place. But it's not going anywhere. It's going to do your audio DSP for you. It's going to take your plugin code, whatever it is, and just run that on the fly. So that's really where my passion kind of comes in. That I was talking about workflow earlier, and the workflow of plugging this device in on a stage and just rocking out. That's the workflow that we're going for. And then integrating that as tightly as it is with software and a plugin store, that's what really provides the user experience in the end. That's what provides that's what, as a musician, you desire, in my opinion, on stage.
So Harry, I like that you guys are working together. I was trying to figure out sort of what's the overlap between these two projects. But what does your interface look like? Can you share your screen and show playing with this a little bit, or is there some video we could go to show that?
There is. The interesting part is that you can see the interfaces here. So on the left we have a synthesizer, there's a drum sampler, the 0.2, the second release that I'm currently working on, and some reverbs. But you can also see above that a piece of hardware that I have to actually control all of this. And essentially the hardware surfaces, so the top half of the video, is what I can plug directly into the mod, and then the software will be running inside the mod. And this is on a desktop, so I'm basically preparing my set to go on stage. You can see I'm kind of talking about some samples and recording some samples into FabLab 2.0. But essentially, in the end, what happens then is I take that preset or that content I've prepared from my live show, I take it, I bring it onto a mod, and then you bring that to the stage with a mod, and you can perform that same set that you've done on your desktop computer or prepared on your desktop computer. So you can see there that the integration between OpenAV, the software, and the way the mod works for your onstage use, it's pretty synergous. Is that the word? It has synergy, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. So both you and the mod stuff are they complementary then? They sound like they both work sort of the same way, which is that you use a desktop to kind of lay everything out, and then you download it into hardware that you carry to stage then?
So the OpenAV side of things is just software. I don't do any hardware, and I basically write algorithms and computer code. And then what we do is magic that into the mod, which is just the hardware. That's basically Gyan's side of the affairs. And he makes it sound awesome by having really high quality audio converters. So like the quality of the audio circuitry on the inside is really second to none. I know the amount of effort Gyan put into that during the Kickstarter and everything. And from the demo unit I have here, I can say it sounds sweet. So that's the kind of thing where the synergy is that, like, I'm working on the software side and making these effects plugins that Gyan demoed, downloading one and using one. In the same way, I test them on a desktop computer before I bring them to the mod. And then once they're on the mod, that's when we really, start using it, because the algorithms actually sound different because the quality of the mod converters are so much better than the ones that I have on the integrated piece of my desktop computer. So, I write them first, I test them, I tweak them, then I bring them to the mod, and then they really get the stress test, because if they sound good there, which they almost always do once you tweak them a bit, then you really know where you're at.
Just before we went to Gian, Gadget Hog in the chat room asks, his Sorcerer synth looks and sounds awesome. Can it be run as a VST and other DAWs applications?
Thanks for the question. I'm afraid not. LV2 is an up-and-coming plugin standard, so the Audacity host actually supports it at the moment, cross-platform since version 2.2, I think. I really like the LV2 plugin spec. It's open source, so VST is a proprietary plugin API that's controlled by a proprietary company, whereas LV2 is a successor to LADSPA plugins. Some people might be familiar with those, so the L in LV2 is LADSPA. And basically, this allows developers like myself to not have to sign a contract or sign away anything when I write a plugin. So this is really open source in the true sense of the word, that everything I do, from compiling code to the plugin spec that I'm writing to, is all open source. And for that reason, I think it's important for OpenAV, but also for people like the mod to be able to take that plugin, that it all needs to be open source. To answer the question directly, no, Sorcerer is unfortunately not available as a VST or an AU or an RTAS plugin or any of the other very common proprietary plugin specs. I hope to see LV2 uptake across the board in lots of audio software. It's a fantastic plugin specification, both from a user's point of view in the sense that it works, and in the developer's point of view that it's expandable. So it's actually future-proof and a very usable, fantastic piece of software engineering. And props to David Robillard, the main author of the LV2 project.
So let's talk about the community a little bit. You're writing a lot of the code, but have you been getting contributions from others?
Sure. So there's bug reports, users. There's a lot of people who are involved with OpenAV. There's a lot of people, just friends of mine now from the Linux Audio Conference, that would generally report back what their experience is of using OpenAV software. There's a huge code base of Jack clients, of example code. The developers of pretty much all the major Linux audio software have been at the Linux Audio Conference somewhere in the last couple of years. I've talked with them face to face. So actual code contributions themselves, not really, but the input from the community and my interaction and Gyan's interaction with the community is absolutely huge and phenomenal. And that's really one of my passions as well, that it is a community of people. It is a group of people who are trying to make things, who are trying to interoperate with each other, who are trying to get things done in an open source and community kind of environment. So I think maybe Gyan has a nice insight on that one as well, because he came at Linux Audio from a hardware angle as opposed to me on the software angle.
Again, you want to follow up on that?
Well, the community is very interesting. As Harry said, it's a very singular and peculiar community, because people actually want to get things done, and it's really amazing the quality of of what is done there. It's really top-notch software. I think that as many other kinds of open source software, there are some flaws, of course. This is one of the things that Harry's plugins are really nice. The interfaces are really thought on, and not just the DSP itself. And because normally the open source or the more academic people would worry a lot about the code itself and how it does that algorithm and fast and stuff, but do not think about how will people use that. And so there are some flaws, but the software generally is really well done. We tried with the mod to actually sort this out, okay, guys, you deal with the DSP and we deal with the rest. So we deal with the interfaces. We have our own. That's a very nice thing about the LV2 that Harry mentioned. It's extendable. So we created our own extensions on the plugin standard so that it would accommodate our necessities as a hardware. And we handle everything that's not the DSP. I mean, the developers only have to worry about actually do what they do best. Most of the, not all, of course, but a big part of the developers. And then we handle the rest, the good interfaces, the easiness of use. I think it's a very nice synergy, very nice. I get very excited about it.
Well, that's one of the things I was looking at, especially when I was playing with the demo interface that was one of your links that you were playing with. How did you do that? It looks beautiful, and it works really cool. Is there some underlying library that that you're doing? I imagine since you're the hardware guy, you probably didn't do that. Was there someone on your team to do that?
Well, it's a long history.
Okay.
At one point, one of the things I really got concerned at one of our very former models is that the communication should be abstracted in a network point of view. So that means that any kind of device that accesses the internet would be able to access the mod. So we went to HTML to do that. So everything, if you noticed it, I was using the browser to connect to the mod. There's a server inside that, just like we have with the routers, that we connect to administrate it on the browser. It's the same idea. We have a web server running inside. And so everything is HTML. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then we have we call it the assembler, that GUI that you said. This has been evolving for some years already so that we got to that point. I have a very nice picture of the evolution of the assembler. I can find it, I'll send it. I'll put on the screen soon. And the version that we have now, it's actually really beautiful. And we have this thing for the plugins themselves, which is the SDK. So we have it's not a library, but it's a package of templates of these Stonebox-like figures. So we have the square ones with the rectangular ones. And you can with some clicks. So you have a plugin, you have sorted out all the DSP, you get this plugin loaded on the SDK. The SDK will parse the information. So what are the ports? What are the port names? How many audio inputs? How many outputs? All this stuff. And then with some clicks, you navigate on the options that you have, like the rack, the square Stonebox, the round one. And we have some templates for that and some skins. And so it's very easy to generate that. We put a lot of effort on this SDK. But now we can generate these screens really on the fly. This is what we make available for the developers, actually. So the developer can, as I told, he can focus on DSP, and we make the interfacing really easy. Of course, you can put a lot of effort on the interface to make even better interfaces. But this is, I think, that I see happening more when we go for commercial plugins and people who would actually spend more money on the plugins to sell them. But on the moment, what we got is really amazing. It's beautiful. Sometimes I want to lick the screen. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's very slick. It's extremely slick. Does that mean that there's a underlying API that's documented that I can hit?
Well, our software, everything is in GitHub. So you go to github.com/mod-devices. And the main component is the mod UI. It's the mod user interface. And but it's not a library. It's only it's kind of a fork of the Tornado web server. We use the Tornado IO loop on the backend to route all the information that goes to the plugins, that goes to the controllers and everything. And the front end, it's a simple HTML. Nothing. Well, it's special, of course. It's lots of code there, but it's HTML. Nothing that we created a part of it. You can take a look at the code, of course.
So,
okay,
Randall, would I understand correctly? Are you interested in building your own plugin interface? Is that kind of what you're asking, or?
I'm asking on behalf of our audience. I have
right. No, not personally, but
yes.
So I'll chime in there and basically say okay, with OpenAV, I write plugins and I want to have extra special interfaces on the mod. So what you do as a plugin developer in that case is you can write, like you can use the SDK. That's the first thing to note. And the SDK is fantastic. I've tested it. It's a great piece of work. You click about 10 times and you have a Stompbox interface that just works. But if you want to take the extra step and say like, okay, I really want my plugin to stand out from the crowd of plugins that's there, in that case, what you can do is write some custom HTML, write some custom JavaScript, CSS, and you can actually build anything you can build using that technology. So I'm sure there's a lot of web developers there who know how much potential there is using HTML5 and various JavaScript SVG libraries. So you can do anything from there. You can paint all over the screen, or at least all over your own div. And yeah, it's an amazing piece of kit that every plugin developer can write their own code, and then that gets served by the server that's in the mod to the user's device. Now, the thing Jan didn't actually mention, or not mention enough in my opinion, is that you can connect a phone to the mod as well, and like a smartphone. So from a smartphone, that same HTML UI will show up as will on your desktop if you're connecting to the desktop. And that kind of gives you a whole new layer of transportability and accessibility to the mod. You don't need to take a laptop or a server computer or a desktop computer around with you. Your smartphone is enough to actually like link with the mod, and then you can patch your or assemble your pedal board, as Gian demonstrated earlier, live on the fly with a smartphone.
That's insane. This is amazing. It's really revolutionizing then what a performer can have access to on both in the studio and on stage. It's pretty slick. I got to ask about your user interface too. Is that some library I can play with, or is that all original stuff?
So I'll answer that as an original library. That's kind of both your answers, but So OpenAV, I'm pretty passionate about how things look. And there's a lot of requirements as well if you're building a UI library for plugins, because it has to plug into other programs. So I won't go into the details, but suffice to say it's a pretty complex and mean domain of software engineering. So what I've done is I designed a user interface toolkit myself, specifically for multimedia or audio video applications. So from my website, there's a link, AVTK, so the audio visual toolkit. It's something that I wrote from scratch with the help of, again, a small library from David Robillard, the guy who designed LV2 as well. He also designed some helper libraries for user interfaces and such. But I think the focus really now is, there's a lot of effort going into developing one of those interfaces. The mod SDK, on the other hand, and the HTML side of things, it's much faster. The turnover for testing is much faster. It's a lot more dynamic, and the results can be equally good because it's actually using almost the identical paths and ray tracing or path tracing method of drawing the interfaces. So for myself, if I was to think, okay, how effectively do I want to spend my time, I'd advise people write a mod HTML UI. It's fantastic and it gets things done, as opposed to let's go code some interfaces in C++ and take the hardcore approach. That said, at the time when I started AVTK, the mod UI wasn't there. It didn't exist. So that's my reason for having created it.
Nice. And is there any, it sounds like the language was C++?
Yeah, so DSB code, I try and keep C. The rest of the OpenAV software is all C, C++. Necessary requirement for hard real-time audio synthesis and that. So there's a lot of technical discussion. I don't think it's maybe the most interesting thing to talk about, given that we also have mod hardware and everything else to discuss in this hour-long slot.
I know.
No, I like C++. That's good. You can keep talking about C++. That's fine.
Yeah, we could. Why not? Hey, let's go off on a tangent.
Okay, and we're almost out of time, so I need to start wrapping this up. But one thing I haven't asked yet is what license and why for OpenAV?
For OpenAV.
Yeah.
So any open source license. I chose GPL initially, GPL v2, now GPL v3. Why? I think it reflects the best kind of... I wouldn't be particularly happy if someone came along and took an OpenAV algorithm or whatever, put it in a box and started selling it to people. That doesn't be right. So if I had MIT or BSD license, that would probably, or could in theory, happen. GPL v3, you have the TiVoization piece in the license, which basically avoids a situation where someone takes an algorithm, puts it in a box that you can't update, and says, okay, here's a box. So GPL, it just seemed a logical choice, to be honest. At one point, you need to go and write software and stop thinking about licenses. So GPL v3.
And Gian, same question?
Most of the software, GPL v3, sometimes v2. Actually, it's a bit messy. The history is long, so but it's mostly GPL. The LV2 standard itself, it's not GPL, it's LGPL. It's a lesser GPL because it permits some commercial parts. We surely will have a commercial plugin store on the future, so that commercial developers can also offer plugins on the store, and then licenses shall be way more studied from our side. But on the moment, all our software is GPL, and that's it. It's the simplest option for us.
And again, like we're almost out of time, so I need to make a couple more quick questions, the ones that will actually help you guys the most, which is what kind of talent are you looking for people to help you with? What's the biggest thing that you're missing? And first with Gian.
Well, we need a lot of things now. Actually, we're going to market, so we are now it's our moment of getting people. We are looking for young people and doing from HTML interfaces, people to do low-level code. We want now it's time to grow the team, but with younger people that actually get into start learning together with the mod, but from on all areas, on HTML, on Python, on C and C++, a lot. It's we have lots of necessities on the moment.
Okay, Harry, same question.
Not to mention the business necessities, huh?
Yeah, okay. Harry, same question.
So with OpenAV, I mean, I'm the lead developer. I do most of the development. I'm pretty happy doing it. At the same time, if people wish it moved faster, which I'm sure there's some people who do, if someone wants to contribute, you have C, C++ skills, testing, debugging, anything at all, packaging even, packaging, name it, UI design, ideas. Hit me with an idea. Say, Harry, I want you to make me one of these. And I'll say, look, I want to make one of those too, but I just don't have the time.
I should probably also ask platforms. What does this run on? Just Linux?
For the OpenAV software, it's just Linux.
Yeah.
So I test on Linux, and I verify everything's working, and just Linux is the only OS. Yeah.
Oh, no OS 10 for me, huh? Even though musicians like to use OS 10 in a lot of places.
In our case, the unit inside it's running Linux, of course.
Yeah.
But for the musician, it doesn't make a difference. It's what you need. It's only any browser any WebKit enabled browser can be used to do the configurations and everything.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
When we have the building system to make the plugins, we wanted initially to distribute it, and then this would generate exactly this problem, which is only people with Linux would be able to actually work with the plugins to create new plugins. So nowadays we have this plan in which we will have the builder working online, and then anyone with can be a Mac or a Windows or a Linux machine will be able to do the DSP and upload to the server to be compiled on the server and to be published. Even if you're using Max MSP patches or pure data patches or your simple Linux code, we want to accept everything like this and just to be handled by an online server and not to distribute the building system to everyone, because you generate too very steep learning curve, and we don't want that.
Okay. And again, like I said, we're almost out of time, but I also have a couple more questions I want to ask. First, I want to ask, we've talked a lot, which has been almost an hour now. Is there any question we haven't asked yet that you wanted to make sure got covered in the show before we have to let you go? And we'll start with Harry.
Not really. No, I'm pretty happy. If people want to check out openavproductions.com, like it is on the bottom of the screen, and if you have some crazy live performance ideas, get in touch. I'm always happy with an email.
Great. And Gian, same question.
I don't think so. Well, if people are interested in buying our device, just go to our website, moddevices.com. There's a newsletter there that you have to fill in, because we are almost going to the readily available. We are first shipping the Kickstarter units. But if you want to at least make a reservation for one, please enter the newsletter and we will contact you. And that's it.
Good. And the two final questions, I keep saying them the final questions, but no, I got to ask these two questions or else my audience gets mad at me. So what's your favorite scripting language and what's your favorite text editor? We'll start with Gian.
Linux-wise, I use Nano. I like the very simple one. And the other question was?
Scripting language.
No, I don't program. I am only a Linux user.
Sada then.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, and then Harry, same two questions.
So I'll chip in there Python and Vim. I'm one of those, but I'll also chip in some of the suckless tools, the DWM and the various ST. That stuff's fantastic.
Yeah, we had them on, I guess, about 6 months ago, maybe, or 4 months ago.
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I never know when we had people on. It's just a blur to me. 10 years now. We're coming up on 10 years of this show, so I have to Google to see if we've had somebody on before, Floss Weekly and some project name, and I know if I've had them on or not. Hey, guys, it's been wonderful. We probably could have gone another hour. This was definitely great to bring you two guys on and talk about the overlap in your projects and also about where you are in terms of current usability and distribution. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about your projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Very cool, very cool. That was, now watch, now see I'm scrolled to the wrong place again on my screen. Harry Van Haren and Gianfranco Seccolini. What'd you think there, Guillermo? Mind blank.
No, don't worry about it. Yeah, no, well, I really like, making music and stuff on my off time. I'm not really good at it, mind you. But I want to play around with this thing. I especially the hardware bits on the device. I may have to order one and see what I can do with it. And since I got the go ahead, so it's not gonna void my warranty, I guess. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
Is this so?
Well, the one thing I'm really impressed by is the look. I mean, and the usability of the look. And I know these guys have both put a lot of heavy effort into that to make sure that that's all clean like that. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of enhancing your performance ability, both with gadgets that you can bring on stage with you and also stuff you can use in the studio. And I've seen a lot of, virtual synthesizers over the years, and it sounds like they're really doing the right thing with all that. It looks pretty cool. Any last words before I start wrapping up the show or talk about who's coming up?
This thing just looks beautiful. So yeah, that's I do wanna emphasize that you rarely see something this well polished, especially in open source, because most of us are just programmers. So we just put things together and we think that'll be fine. People will figure it out. Just triple click here and double alt shift something else. This thing is easy to use, and it's just I'm awestruck in with the design they put on it. It's great.
Okay, I know Kevin's getting nervous here, but us finishing the show. So let me quickly run down the upcoming guests. ToroDB is coming up next week. I saw these guys at Scale. This guy, I think it's only one guy. Y'all know MongoDB. It's web scale. He's figured out how to take the wire protocol for MongoDB and go through a translator and host it on Postgres. And you'd think, okay, that's got to be slow going from one thing to the other like that. No, it actually, on the same comparable hardware, ToroDB runs MongoDB unchanged at 5 times the speed that MongoDB runs it at. That's because Postgres has had a huge amount of time optimizing the system and scaling horizontally, scaling vertically. Pretty amazing stuff. So I really want to get him on. It's still sort of an early beta, but you might want to start playing with it. Sounds pretty cool. Following that, we've got Jan Leonard talking with 2 shows. That'll be coming up. CouchDB, CouchDB 2.0 is out. That's a JavaScript accessible database. And then he's also got Hoodie, but we'll do it with 2 separate shows. That's an easy backend for front-end developers. So that's going to be very slick. So, people get afraid of how to set up Node.js and stuff like that. This is to make that all simple. So we just added to the list the Wilsons. David Wilson and Heather Wilson want to talk to us about Linux Camp 2016, which is a certification camp. It's not it's a commercial package, but I know that if you want to get into Linux, you want to get certified, these are the kinds of things you have to look for. So we want to have them talk about how it was to set that up and what they're actually offering. Very soon, we're going to have somebody from Mozilla talk about encryption. They have an encryption effort going on. We're trying to schedule them right now. Unfortunately, they can't show on Tuesday, so we're going to have to move the show to Wednesday or Thursday sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So you'll see it. We'll talk about it. Those are all on twit.tv/floss, the homepage. for this show. There's a link there to the big spreadsheet that tells you who's actually coming up. We could always use more guests. I'm still got one slot left in Q1. Q2 is already open. We've got a few people looking at that already. We have a live stream at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays at live.twit.tv. We took a couple questions from there. You can follow us on Floss Weekly on Google+, and also that gets tweeted over to @FlossWeekly, so you can follow us on Twitter if you feel like that as well. You can follow me at Merlin on Twitter. I sometimes respond to people talking there. I generally retweet stuff that people have said about me, so if you say things about me, I'll probably retweet it. But primarily Google+, Randall L. Schwartz on Google+. I really have nothing to plug right now. I'm not going to be in any public places yet. Of course, I'll be at OSCON. I'll probably be at EAPSI North America. I hope I'm going to be at DragonCon again this year. I'm waiting back to hear from whether I'm a guest there or not. And I think that's all I want to plug. Guillermo, your thing?
Well, people can follow me on Twitter. That's at GAMARAL. I never talk to myself. You can also look for me on YouTube. I have a few videos and stuff I do, projects and such. You can Google Gamaral, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to be the DJ guy. I'm going to be the other guy, the less fun guy. And you can also just look for my name, Guillermo Amaral. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, yep. That's my name in that thing down there.
Yeah. Hey, Guillermo, thanks for stepping up again and co-hosting with me. So I'm not just talking to myself here or just talking to the guests. It's really nice having two hosts because then I can, hand back and forth. And it seems to work really well for us over the years. So thanks for joining me once again.
No problem, man. Anytime.
All right. We'll see you all again next week. They let anybody do this on Floss Weekly.